bringing the stories of people just like us directly into your home and learning more about them. This is Trent Speaks.
Yeah, your story matters.
That's Jenna, and she's this week's guest on the Trent Speaks podcast. Welcome in, everyone, on whatever day today is, the end of April. That's really all that you need to know, is that we're done with April basically already. I hope you've been getting out and enjoying the sunshine and the lovely weather that we've been having lately. I know that one of my good friends, he's on vacation right now. And when I was talking to my wife the other day, she said, "Where is he and why weren't we invited?" And I would 100% agree. I don't know why we weren't invited. It seems rather like you wouldn't want us as friends or something. I'm kidding. Last week, at the end of the podcast, I mentioned there will be a big announcement this week, so make sure that you stay tuned and listen to the full podcast this week to catch the big announcement of something new and something exciting coming. This past weekend, I did have my keynote speech. I had my keynote address, and I got a lot of great compliments on it, and I was very happy with the way it went. People even laughed at me, which is okay. I don't know if they were laughing at me or with me. But it was a phenomenal experience. I actually emailed the committee earlier today and just thanked them again for the opportunity. It was incredible. I cannot wait to do another keynote speech in the future. I loved every minute of it, and I still can't stop thinking about it. And I lost count of how many times I've listened to the keynote speech, just because I'm so in love with it, and I'm so in love with the way that it went, and it couldn't have went any better. So let's just dive right into this week's podcast. This week's guest was actually an old neighbor of mine many, many years ago, but her name is Jenna, and I felt bad because I made her wait for, well, a reason she shouldn't have had to wait for. Sorry for the delay there. I was making hot chocolate.
Hey, hot chocolate is definitely an important thing in life, for sure.
She's not wrong, and I'm not going to argue with her on that at all. This week was no different than the week that I spoke to Jesse. It took me a lifetime to figure out how I was going to start the interview this week. And so I rambled on for a few minutes, trying to find my words. Finally, I was able to, and once I was able to find them, we got rolling. Jenna, so why don't you start by telling me kind of like what shaped who you are and how you've got to be where you are now?
That's a very good question. I think in general for my life, going through different experiences and struggles definitely has shaped, who I am as a person, but also my purpose in life as well. So whether that's, which I went to community college for 2 years, never got a, associate's degree. But, at the same time, that taught me a lot of things that I now can deal with in my life today. And just like the different experiences of relationships in my life, and that's not just romantic relationships, but relationships with family, and really trying to understand the connection and making connections with people, because I think a huge part of who I am today is, I know this sounds weird, but it's in thanks to my parents' divorce, because I had to grow up super fast. My parents got divorced when I was 6 years old, and my brother was 2, and it was something that I really had to be like, okay, Jenna, time to put your big pants on. And I took life, very fast. I had to grow up very fast. So, having that as, a backbone of my life really created into my purpose that I prevail now. And, I can relate to more people too. So relating in that way to, people who have divorced parents, or people who, had to grow up super fast, when they were younger, or people who struggle with relationships with their dad or their mom. Being able to relate from experiences in your past really, is not always a damper on your life. So trying to look at the outcome of what I went through in my past definitely has shaped me in who I am as a person, and has definitely shaped me in like who I'm becoming even down the road. Even just at age 23, I'm still amazed at, everything that I've gone through. And even my family too is like, oh my gosh, like we totally thought you and Jeff were going to turn into this upside down, pineapple pancake type of thing, but you actually turned out pretty decent. So, just to, hear that from family is one thing, but to look at it as, going through those experiences really helped form me in who I am as an individual, is something, even just something that I can't even explain. It's more of a God thing than anything.
Geez, not even 2 minutes into the interview and you're pulling out all this heavy stuff already. Jenna, kind of talk to me a little bit about, I know vulnerability is a big thing that you preach. You are actually the reason, as you know, a couple weeks ago, or even a couple months ago now, here I go again, struggling to find words. You were kind of one of the reasons that one of my topics came up for this podcast, and I think it actually was the vulnerability podcast that I ended up doing. Kind of talk to me about that and what that experience is like in putting yourself out there, and how that's kind of helped you as well.
Yeah, that's something that I've never always had. I struggled a lot with many self-conscious issues, just body image issues, and I think the whole middle part of everything is social media. I kind of, you can use it for the good of things and you can use it for the worst of things. It's really how you choose to use it. And at a point where, Facebook started becoming a thing, Snapchat, Instagram, things like that, I really started to be something that I wasn't. And I was a different person to, I wasn't true to myself. I was posting things that I started my health journey about 4 years ago. But at the same time, everything I posted or everything I, preached about type of thing was perfect this, perfect that, perfect this, perfect that. And, that puts a lot of pressure on people. If you have this goal of being perfect all the time, and that's what I had in my mindset, it really just, it clogged my heart and it clogged my mind. So I would honestly even say the past year, I've really learned a little bit, and it gradually took time to, being vulnerable. And I always say to myself, and it's kind of like when you relate it to your faith and you relate it to God, God knows everything, like everything that you do. But if you're not vulnerable with yourself, if you're not vulnerable with who you are, you can't have that great of a connection with God, because you're always trying to hide something. And even though He knows. So it's that's kind of how I grew into my understanding of vulnerability and how important it is, because I thought I was the only one, going through my depression episodes. I thought I was the only one, struggling with body image. I thought I was the only one, dealing with, insecurities. When I started becoming vulnerable, and I started preaching that, and I started making that a part of my life, that in return helped me, in my confidence level, because I was able to know that this life, the life we live today, is not supposed to be a perfect thing. We're not created to be perfect. We're created to be perfect in his image, but we're not created to be this perfect individual. So I really had to like smack myself across the face and really be like, okay, Jenna, this is not who God called you to be. He called you to be a vessel for him, but just because you're his vessel doesn't mean you have to be this perfect pipe for people to flow through you. Like, we all have cracks, we all have bruises, but those vulnerable moments of our life, like that's where everything shines. That's where God uses you. So I kind of had to flip my mindset into understanding that my life wasn't supposed to be perfect, to be more open about the struggles that I was facing, and the real world, the real life, because social media has this tendency of putting a mask on all of our faces, and it just isn't. It's not true. So I guess with the vulnerability part, that's really something that I took step into, being okay, time to own it, time to share my story, time to share my struggles, because at the same time, like, I know there's more out there. I know there's people who are going through these things. So why not be the solution to their story with sharing my struggle?
And I know through seeing a few of your posts on social media and everything, and obviously through this conversation, that religion is a huge part of your life and who you are and your faith is and everything. Has that something that's always been, or was there kind of a turning point that you can think of that made God even more to the center of your relationship, or strengthen that relationship with God and in your faith?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, God was not always a part of my life. And, looking back at it now, I'm just like, wow, he does do miraculous things. When my parents got divorced, my mom took my brother and I to a church in Byron Center, and we went there for a couple years, and then after that, my mom got remarried, and we didn't really go to church. So throughout high school, I was, a very good kid. I didn't do any bad things. So, that was a huge protection of, God protecting me from a lot of things. But I knew God was real, but I didn't have I didn't pray every day. I didn't have that, relationship with him, but I knew he was, true. And I believed in him, but, I just, he was pushed off to the side. So I didn't really start, my spiritual walk until probably my freshman or sophomore year of college. And that's where I kind of just grew into knowing that, my life without God was not something that I could, live with. And, many things that he has brought to my life to help prove that, has been, even situations where, I drive for my job, I float all over the place. And so a lot of the times I would be in my car just, talking to God. That's when I would have my talks. That's where he would download so much into me. And, a lot of people think that's crazy, but at the same time, I believe part of my gifting is prayer. So when I use that power, and I pray out loud for people, I'll have the car next to me just looking at me like, okay, her phone isn't up, her video is on. What is it? That's when I'm just like, okay, whatever. But that's, how I created my, my connection with him. And he was able, to download many things into my life and prevailing a lot of callings. And I focused a lot. I was like, okay, God, what is that specific thing you want me to do? What is that one thing? What is it? What is it? Just show it to me. Here's a pen and paper. Just write it down. And it's not that easy. It's really not. And, I had to be patient with it because, 3 years ago, I look back and that's where 3-4 years ago, that's where I kind of started, implementing a lot of my faith into my life in general. And, sorry, my cats are going all over the place. into my life in general, and being able to relay that to, my daily tasks, and being able to walk into work with a godly mind, and being able to walk into a relationship with a godly mind, and being able to walk into, a friendship with a godly mind. Like, there was differences that I could see in God using me in those ways, and that I didn't have. But just because I didn't have it, I look back at it now and I'm just like, well, wow, God. It's like, you definitely kept me from that. I could have been smoking weed in that corner right there. I could have been, there could have been many things. So a lot of the times I have to look and see, it's not what God brought me through, it's what he kept me from. And that is a huge part of my story. Like, I could have went through so much, and he didn't allow it to happen. And so I remain to use, I use that as, my trigger. And I've been out of the church for almost a year now, just because I've been trying to get back to something. I was at a church in Grand Rapids for a while, and so I'm just trying to find my niche again. So I've been attending a church with my mom, which was one of my prayers, years ago, because my mom would not touch a church. And, just to be able to have that now, and have her be like, hey, let's go to church. That to me is God answering a prayer. She didn't want to come. I was on the praise team at my other church. She never wanted to come in here. And she's like, I'll just watch online. But to have that now, and I'm just like, okay, God, you do move. Maybe you didn't move 2 years ago, but you moved. You moved now. I just had to be patient. So it's something that's developed in my life that is a huge part of my life. So that's how I'm going to live my life. Even if it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for it to develop, just because you pray about it and it doesn't happen tomorrow doesn't mean that it's not ever going to happen. You just still have to rely on that faith that you have.
I think too, and kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation about, you had mentioned about, I guess having concerns about depression and what are people going to think if they find out, or body image. That's something I've talked about before too, is how, I've had a battle with depression and anxiety. But really, the more that we talk about this stuff, I think the phrase that I used was something along the lines of, vulnerability is the strength of our weakness.
Yes.
And that really, the more you talk about it, the more you realize how prevalent it really is, and how many other people are struggling through it, but they too are too scared to speak up or to say anything. Right.
And I think the choice that you make to become vulnerable and to use that for, your, not just your advantage but to also, help somebody else become vulnerable, because it's a huge uncomfortable thing. It really is, because it's almost like being naked in front of somebody, because you don't want to know people, you don't want people to know what you go through, but it's almost like so much of an uplifted weight off your shoulders that it's why would you want to hold that? Why would you want to hold your story back from somebody who really needs it? If God sat you down and said, hey, you have a golden nugget right inside of you, and that is going to change so many lives, would you still sit on it? Would you still just keep that inside of you? But, we're not told. So just because we're not specifically told, or hey, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, we still sit on, the blessing that we have inside of us that, God wants to use, but we're so comfortable of just keeping it inside that, oh, nobody's going to move by that. I'm not going to inspire anybody. Yeah, your story matters. What you went through matters. Don't believe in the enemy. Don't listen to what the enemy has to say.
And then we mentioned, see, this is where sometimes I struggle over my words, even in mid interview. We were talking before we started recording and everything, and you had mentioned you were going to do a detox kind of Facebook. Kind of talk to me how that came to fruition, and do you think that's going to help you in terms of what it is you're trying to accomplish?
Right. Yeah. I love social media. I really do. It's a great way for me to connect with people, to interact with people. And it's an amazing opportunity if you use it the correct way. However, sometimes it distracts me from, certain things. A huge thing that I struggle with is making sure that I have, the right amount of balance. I really, really stink at time management. But I'm also, of course, I'm one who puts so much on my plate, but I can't eat it all. So that finding that balance, and it happened to me this past weekend. I was just like, I work a 9-to-5 job. I do photography on the side. I have another side business. Plus, I'm going back to the gym 3 times a week. I have a family. I have a boyfriend, and there's only 7 days in the week. What? And, just trying to pinpoint, okay, I'm overwhelmed right now. So that's the trigger. Mind you, 3 years ago, Jenna would be like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to go cry in my room. And so, I found that, okay, I am overwhelmed. Okay, there's the first part. Second part, okay, what can I do to fix it? All right, well, what are you doing with your time? Well, it was a busy weekend, had a wedding, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay, well, social media, how much time am I spending on social media? A lot, because, that's how I connect with people. Okay, can you limit it? I don't trust myself if I'm tempted by an app on my phone. So what was my initial decision? Delete it. So I took Facebook off. I have Instagram because Instagram isn't too over the board. But what I really wanted to do is, I knew I was losing myself. My personal development was going down. Reading was going down, all of these little things. And I had so much on my to-do list that I was overwhelmed. So this social media thing, just being off for a couple days, gives me time to just not think about other people and just more so think about myself. Even though I know that, my purpose is to be that image and to, provide that vulnerability for other people. And I love posting and I love writing, but I sometimes need a break. So breaking myself from something that, can distract me at some points. I could sit on my phone and scroll for an hour straight. And, just trying to reevaluate and refocus on myself. And that's my huge, my ultimate goal with this is I want to be able to just take time away where I can just breathe, because I'm not perfect. I felt just suffocating. Yesterday, my anxiety was high. I was like, okay, I can't do this. I can't. So I was just need to fix something. So when I got home, and sometimes all it takes is, shutting off your phone for a couple hours. For me, it's going to be a couple days because that's what I need. But I really think that's going to help, boost myself back up, because I can't pour into other people if I'm not right myself. I can't pour into other people's minds or hearts if my heart and mind is not right in itself. So, that's the whole tendency of being vulnerable with yourself, owning to what you have in front of you, and making that decision and that change to make something happen to help improve your own self, so then you in return can help somebody else.
Sometimes I wish people that I talk to could actually see me, because I was shaking my head the entire time over here yes, that's exactly what people need to do, is because you're right. Before you can help other people and take care of other people, you need to take care of yourself. So I applaud you for doing that. I've tried to do it before too, and I know how difficult it can be. So good luck with the detox and everything.
Thanks.
So Jenna, you mentioned photography earlier. What are some of your hobbies? What are some things that you like to do for fun?
Oh, that's just another story. I love kids. I miss nannying. I really do. I, in general, love babies. I know that's not a hobby, but baby in my arms, I'm gone for the day. I'm just a creative person. So just in general, I just love creating. Whether that's writing or, singing when I have the time. That's a huge part of my life. Music is, photography, just a huge encourager in general. And I love family. Like, family is a huge part of my life. And, having a second family now with my boyfriend's side of the picture, is just something that, of course, it's another thing to add on to my list, but it's another blessing to add on to my life. So, and it's hard too, because, I have so much. So, balancing that, does take time and it does take patience, but, it'll all get done at the end of the day.
Jenna, what is it that you want people to learn from, whether it's you or your story or experiences that you've been through? What is it that you want people to take away after listening to you talk today?
I think in general, a huge thing is never underestimate your power, because I think a lot of people do underestimate what they have, and they use it to decrease their value. And I did that for years. I did it where, I didn't think my story was worth anything. So if anything that you would take away from this, I just challenge you to really just look at yourself, look at your story, look at everything you've gone through, and try to pick what has come out of that, because something, you're still here today. Like, you're still sitting or standing here today. Whatever you've gone through in your past does have a representation of your future, and don't let that make you think that it doesn't, because your story can impact another life. It's not unvaluable. It's not something that's, not worth anything. So you do have, value to your story.
Thanks for chit-chatting today, Jenna, and I appreciate you sharing your story. And I've been inspired, so I hope that you've inspired others too, and they're able to take that kind of stuff away.
Well, definitely. Thank you for having me. I'm definitely honored and humbled that you did ask me to be a guest, and I do pray and hope that people took away something as well.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really enjoyed my talk with Jenna this week. She said a lot of things that I've talked about already, whether it's with other guests and things that we've kind of brought up, whether it's things that I've brought up on my own on weeks that I don't have guests. And so it was nice to hear a lot of that from someone else, from someone who's practicing the vulnerability, who's doing a detox, and a lot of other topics that we've already discussed. I really loved when she said your story is worth it. So if you would like to share your story, feel free to reach out to me at Trent Speaks on Instagram or trentspeaks@gmail.com. If you're my Facebook friend, you can message me as well. I would also like to congratulate Jenna, as she is officially now in the books, my second ever female guest. Round of applause for Jenna. I'm too cheap to pay for sound effects, so I have to create my own. Thank you, Jenna. Again, historically, you are the second woman on this Trent Speaks podcast. Funny enough, I am wearing my Trent Speaks shirt today, and that was not done on purpose. And I appreciate those of you that have sent me you wearing your shirt. I didn't screenshot all of them like I should have. But if you're interested in a Trent Speaks shirt, again, feel free to reach out to me at Trent Speaks on Instagram, trentspeaks@gmail.com, or just reaching out to me through my Facebook, and I can get you one of those t-shirts. All right, time for the big announcement. Drum roll, please. Again, we're creating our own sound effects. I don't really... All right. That's a couple different types of drums for you. Okay, huge announcement. So on Thursday, May 10th, I didn't write the time down, but at 6 or 6:30, I haven't decided yet, Central Time, 7 or 7:30 Eastern Time, probably 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern Time, I will be doing a Facebook and Instagram Live Trent Speaks podcast. You heard that correctly. I'll be live on Facebook and Instagram for the Trent Speaks podcast on Thursday, May 10th. So make sure that you tune in. I'll answer any questions that may come in during that time. Feel free to send your questions in advance, trentspeaks@gmail.com, or just message them to me on Instagram or Facebook. And we'll kind of just chit-chat about whatever. So hopefully people tune in, because if no one tunes in and shows up, it's literally just going to be me rambling about how no one is on Instagram or Facebook listening and watching the Trent Speaks podcast take place. So Thursday, May 10th, mark it in your calendar, 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern Time. We'll probably go about a half hour, and we'll just kind of go from there. We'll roll with it, and like I said, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, answer any questions you have, and I'm really excited for it. I can't wait. So until then, until next week when we talk again, have a great one, and stay classy.